All right, so today we're diving into something that sounds like it's straight out of a sci-fi movie, but it's really not. It's happening right now. We're talking about artificial intelligence showing up in the corporate boardroom. And yeah, in some cases, it's even taking the CEO's chair. This is all about the rise of the robot boss.
Okay, so let's get right into it and meet some of these pioneers. And just to be clear, these aren't just some vague concepts or thought experiments. Nope, these are actual AI systems that have already been handed real decision-making power in the business world.
So, believe it or not, our story starts all the way back in 2014. In Hong Kong, a venture capital firm called Deep Knowledge Ventures did something pretty radical. They put an algorithm, an AI named Vital, on their board of directors. Its job? To analyze investments in life sciences. But here's the kicker. Vital was given a vote on which companies to fund, a real vote, just like every other human board member.
Okay, so fast forward just 2 years and this idea jumps over to Europe. A big, publicly traded tech company in Scandinavia called Tito brings an AI named Alicia T onto the management team for one of its new business units. And this was a huge deal, right? This was the first time an AI officially held a leadership role in a major public company.
And then, just last year, things got even wilder. A Polish company named Dictador took what is probably the most radical step we've seen so far. They didn't just appoint some lines of code, they appointed Mika, a full-on humanoid robot, as the company's official CEO. I mean, they gave the AI a face, a body, and a physical presence right there in the C-suite.
So when you lay it all out like this, you can see this isn't just a couple of weird one-offs for headlines. It's a real, steady trend that's been building. And what's absolutely wild is the speed of it all. You know, back in 2015, the World Economic Forum made this big prediction that an AI would probably sit on a corporate board by 2026. Well, guess what? Vital had already been doing it for a year. It beat the prediction by a mile. The future is definitely getting here a lot faster than we expect.
So this all leads to a pretty obvious question, right? What does it actually, look like when an AI is managing things? How does it work? Well, right now, it looks like there are two main ways this is all playing out.
So on one hand, you've got what you could call the all-seeing eye approach. Think of a massive central digital command center, like one single AI brain that oversees the entire company all at once. The other path is, well, it's more like building a team of specialists. Companies are creating lots of smaller, specialized AIs, where one handles hiring, another handles logistics, another one crunches market data, and so on.
Okay, let's look at a really powerful example of that first path, that all-seeing eye. It's called the Panorama Digital Command Center, and it's run by the Abu Dhabi National Oil Company, ADNOC. You can basically think of it as the company's central nervous system. It's constantly pulling in real-time data from more than a dozen different parts of the company. It uses digital twins to simulate and monitor everything, and it even uses blockchain to keep all its records secure. And the whole point is to spit out insights and recommendations for the human managers. And to give you a sense of the scale we're talking about here, wow, $60 billion. This isn't some little side project or an experiment. Panorama is helping to manage the day-to-day operations of a massive global company that does over $60 billion in business a year. It's huge.
But of course, as these AI systems get more and more powerful and woven into everything a company does, well, they bring up a huge fundamental challenge. And this is a problem that really gets to the heart of things like fairness and accountability. You could say it's really the central conflict of this whole story.
And the question is this: how do you regulate an algorithm? I mean, think about it. You can pull a human CEO into a room and ask them why they made a decision. You can ask about their reasoning, their ethics, even their gut instinct. But with a lot of these complex AIs, you just can't. The way it makes a decision is often a total black box, and that makes it incredibly hard to check its work or hold it accountable.
And that black box? It's really dangerous because it's the perfect hiding place for bias. You know, if you feed an AI a bunch of historical hiring data, it might just learn all the old discriminatory habits from that data and bake them right into its decisions. But here's the really interesting twist. While we're all worried about AI bias, a perfectly designed AI could actually be less biased than a human. Why? Because you can force it to follow super strict, measurable rules for fairness in a way that you just can't with a person's gut feeling. The trick, of course, is actually building that perfectly designed AI.
So, naturally, regulators are scrambling to figure this out. A really big move is coming from the European Union. They're working on something called a right to explanation. The idea is to make it the law.
to legally require companies to be able to explain the logic behind any AI decision that has a big impact on someone's life. They're basically trying to legislate that black box open.
And this whole challenge has led to a really fascinating new idea. People are starting to ask, what if, instead of trying to force AI to follow our human rules, rules that are based on things like intuition and ethics that it can't really grasp, what if we wrote a totally new set of rules, a rule book designed just for the robots?
Yeah, there's a technical name for this. It's called a dedicated operational context. But really the best way to think about it is like creating a digital sandbox for the AI to play in. It's a safe, closed-off environment that has its own special rules, policies, and data, all things the AI can actually understand, so it can make decisions safely within those boundaries.
And this is really the key difference right here. Our policies for humans are built on abstract ideas like ethics, fairness, and intent. But an AI doesn't understand intent. So the rules for an AI have to be based purely on things it can understand and process, hard, measurable data, things like statistical models and data points it can actually verify.
So, okay, how does this actually work in practice? Well, let's take a big, fuzzy human concept like fair treatment. How do you teach that to an AI? You don't. You translate it. You break it down into things the machine can actually measure. So fairness becomes a checklist. Did we get informed consent? Check. Did we run the numbers to make sure there's no statistical discrimination? Check. Is there a fair distribution of risks? Check. You're literally turning an abstract value into a series of math problems for the AI to solve.
Okay, so this whole idea of building a perfect rule-based AI manager, it leads us to one final and honestly pretty mind-bending concept. What happens when these AI systems get so good at this that they start improving themselves? What happens when you get a runaway feedback loop right in the middle of the corporate world?
Well, there's a name for this. In AI circles, it's called the technological singularity. It's this hypothetical moment when technology starts improving itself so fast that growth becomes uncontrollable, irreversible, and explosive. Now, if you apply that same idea to the boardroom, you can imagine a world where AI-managed companies become so incredibly efficient that they kick off their own unstoppable cycle of improvement.
And just think about how that would work, right? A company with a better AI manager starts crushing its competition. That success means more money, more resources, which they can then pour back into building an even smarter AI. And that creates this powerful feedback loop that could create a massive, maybe even insurmountable, competitive gap between the companies run by AI and everyone else.
Which brings us to one last, really provocative thought. This quote was famously asked when another robot, Sophia, was granted citizenship in Saudi Arabia. And it's a question that cuts right to the heart of this whole thing. As we start giving these powerful new forms of intelligence a seat at the table, or even the head of the table, we're not just dealing with questions about business and technology anymore. We're forced to ask some really fundamental questions about our own values, our own rights, and what it really means to be the one in charge.